My sister Sophie always copied everything I did, from my hobbies to my college. The last straw was when she chose the same date as my wedding. I decided it was time to expose Sophie and show everyone the truth about her obsession. I knew something was wrong with Sophie forever. Since childhood, we were inseparable. The same clothes, the same hobbies, even the same group of friends. But as I grew up and searched for my own identity, Sophie seemed to be left behind, trapped in my shadow. This became unbearable when she decided to schedule the wedding for the same day as mine. At that moment, I decided it was time to expose his obsession to the world. It was a Friday night, and we were all at my parents' house. Ethan and I were in the kitchen, preparing dinner. He mashed the potatoes while I arranged the salad, the aroma of roast chicken filling the room. Even with the comfort of the family scene, my stomach was in us. Sophie was about to arrive, and I knew the night wasn't going to be easy. As soon as Sophie and her fiancé, Mark, walked through the door, I felt the tension rise. We sat down at the dinner table. The conversation flowed with trivial updates about life. Dad talked about work, and Mom told a funny story about the neighbor's dog. It was then that Mom, with a twinkle in her eye, asked, "Haley, have you and Ethan already picked a wedding date?" I exchanged a glance with Ethan and, holding his hand, replied, "Yes, April 10th. Mom smiled warmly. What a wonderful date. Weddings in spring are always the most beautiful. Before I could answer, Sophie, with a twinkle in her eye, exclaimed, "Mark and I also chose April 10th for our wedding." The room fell silent. I felt the anger rise like a volcano. "No, you can't do that. That's our date, and we chose it first." Sophie crossed her arms and said defiantly, "How do you know we were the ones who chose later?" The rest of the night was a blur of tension and frustration. Sophie always dodged, maintaining her defiant tone. But inside me, something had changed. I was determined to unmask her, to show everyone the truth about her obsession. And for the first time, I knew exactly how to do it. The weeks following dinner were a real test of patience. Sophie sent me constant messages, wanting to know all the details of my wedding. Colors, flowers, place, cake. She wanted it all. I couldn't believe her audacity. Not only did she steal our date, but she wanted to copy every detail of our wedding. Each new message I received made me more frustrated. It was then that I had an idea. If Sophie was so determined to copy me, I was going to give her something to copy. When she asked me to send her photos of the dress I was thinking of wearing, I looked up the most horrible designs I could find and sent them to her. Who knows, I thought, maybe she'd pick one of those and look ridiculous. A few days later, I decided to visit a bridal salon to try on my real dress. It was a dream, a white dress, with lace details and a long veil, exactly as I always imagined. I was admiring my reflection in the mirror, feeling like a princess, when I heard the door open. My heart sank as I saw Sophie walk in. "Haley, did you choose that salon too?" Sophie exclaimed, surprised. "We are so similar." "Yes," I replied, trying to hide my annoyance. She looked at the dress I was wearing and raised an eyebrow. "This is nothing like the ones you sent me." "I changed my mind," I said, and then an idea occurred to me to prove to everyone that Sophie was copying me. I had to change my mind because I'm pregnant. Sophie's eyes widened. "Oh, congratulations," she said, trying to sound sincere. "Mark and I are also thinking about having a baby." I knew it wasn't true. Mark once told me that he didn't want children for a few years, but Sophie always tried to outdo me. "I hope everything works out for you," I replied, maintaining my polite tone. The small spark of victory shone within me. She was about to fall into my trap. The following days were of pure expectation. My little lie had planted a seed, and I was anxious to see what Sophie would do next. To my surprise, she didn't take long to act. 2 weeks later, I received a message from her, a photo of a positive pregnancy test with the caption, "Our children will be like brothers." I couldn't believe what I saw. Was Sophie willing to get pregnant just to copy me? I congratulated her, but my mind was racing. What should I do now? I couldn't go on with the pregnancy lie for long. I decided that the best way to deal with this would be to expose the truth at a family dinner. On the night of the dinner, Ethan and I arrived first. Mom greeted us with a warm smile and immediately started asking about the wedding arrangements. "How's it going with the wedding, Haley?" she asked, her eyes full of anticipation. "We're almost done with the plans," I replied, trying to sound excited. Ethan nodded. "There are just a few details missing." A few minutes later, Sophie and Mark arrived. Sophie looked nervous but determined. She sat next to me, a sly smile on her face. "Haley, have you told Mom about your pregnancy yet?" she asked, drawing everyone's attention. Mom's eyes widened. "Are you pregnant? That's wonderful." No, not quite," I replied quickly. "I took a test, but it turned out to be a false positive." Mom nodded, relieved. "Oh, it happens." Sophie, however, seemed frustrated. "So you're not pregnant?" she asked, with a hint of irritation in her voice. "No, it was a mistake," I replied, trying to hide my satisfaction. Mark, who had been quiet until then, frowned. "Sophie, you told me Haley was pregnant. Is that true?" Before Sophie could respond, her purse fell to the floor, revealing an ultrasound photo. Mark took the picture, his face red with anger. "What's that, Sophie?" "It's our baby. I'm pregnant," she said, trying to sound calm. Mark shook his head in disbelief. "Impossible. I'm infertile." The silence that followed was devastating. Mom and Dad were in shock, and Sophie was speechless. My trap had worked, but the damage was done. The silence in the room was heavy, almost suffocating. Mark was standing there, holding the ultrasound photo, his face red with anger. Sophie, normally so sure of herself, seemed like a frightened child, not knowing what to say. Finally, she found her voice, but her attempt to keep her cool only made things worse. "Mark, I can explain," she began, but Mark interrupted her. "Explain what, Sophie? That you lied about the pregnancy? Or that you're carrying another man's child?" His voice was full of bitterness. Mom and Dad, still in shock, looked at Sophie as if they didn't recognize her. I felt a mixture of triumph and pity, knowing that the truth had finally come out, but also seeing how much it was hurting everyone. "Who's the father, Sophie?" Mom asked, her voice trembling. Sophie looked down, unable to face our parents. "It's Colin, Mark's old neighbor," she whispered. Mark threw the ultrasound photo on the floor. "Did you cheat on me with him?" "It was a mistake," Sophie said, tears streaming down her face. "I was confused and scared." "Afraid of what? To live your own life?" I asked, my voice harsher than I intended. "You've spent your whole life trying to be me. But this has crossed the line, Sophie." She looked at me, tears in her eyes. "I didn't mean to hurt you, Haley. I don't know who I am without you." Mom began to cry silently, while Dad shook his head in despair. "Sophie, you need help," he said, his voice firm but gentle. Ethan held my hand, giving me strength. "Let's go," he whispered. We left my parents' house that night, a whirlwind of emotions following us. Sophie needed to face her own truths, and I finally felt that I could move on with my life, free from her shadow. The weeks following the dinner were intense. Sophie disappeared from social media and avoided any contact with her family. Mom tried to reach her, but the calls went straight to voicemail. Dad suggested she needed space, but Mom couldn't hide her concern. Ethan and I were focused on our wedding preparations. We tried to keep our minds busy with the choices of flowers, menu, and rehearsals, but the shadow of family drama hung over us. One Saturday afternoon, while we were finalizing the decoration details, I received an unexpected message from Colin. "We need to talk. It's about Sophie." Ethan saw the worry on my face. "What's wrong?" "It's Colin. He wants to talk about Sophie. I don't know what to expect." We met in a low-key cafe downtown. Colin looked dejected, his eyes tired and his expression serious. "Sophie showed up at my apartment a few days ago," he began. "She was a mess. She said she was sorry and wanted to try again with me. Is she really pregnant?" I asked, anxiously. Colin nodded. "Yes, she is. And it's my son. But I told her that we need to take it slow, that she needs to understand herself before anything else." I felt a mixture of relief and sadness. Sophie really was pregnant, But the situation was even more complicated than I imagined. Did she mention anything about our parents? I asked. Yes, she's scared to face everyone, but I think she knows she can't run away forever. Back in our routine, Ethan hugged me as we talked about the meeting. Let's focus on our marriage. Sophie needs to work this out on her own, but we'll be here when she's ready. The big day has finally arrived. The sky was clear, and the sun was shining. The ceremony was beautiful, full of love and laughter. When we entered the reception, I saw Sophie in the background, with a shy look. She was not alone. Colin was next to her, holding her hand. With tears in our eyes, we approached and hugged each other. Sorry for everything, Sophie whispered. I want to be a better person, a better sister. You'll make it, I replied emotionally. We are here for you. That day marked not only the union of Ethan and me, but also a new beginning for Sophie. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but for the first time, she was ready to face her own challenges. And we would be there, as a family, to support her. After the wedding, my life with Ethan seemed like a dream. We were finally free from Sophie's incessant drama, and our days were filled with laughter and love. However, I knew that peace would not last forever. Sophie still had a long way to go, and our lives were intertwined in ways we couldn't ignore. One afternoon, while Ethan and I were organizing our honeymoon photos, my phone rang. It was Mom, and from the urgency in her voice, I knew something was wrong. Haley, it's Sophie. She's in the hospital. My heart raced. What happened? She passed out at Colin's house. He brought her to the hospital. It looks like she's anemic. Ethan and I rushed to the hospital. We found Colin in the waiting room, visibly shaken. She is being examined. The doctors think it's serious, he said, his eyes red with concern. The wait was agonizing. Finally, a doctor appeared and led us to Sophie. She was pale and weak, but her eyes shone with determination. Sorry for causing more trouble, she whispered. Sophie, we're here for you, I said, holding her hand. We will get through this together. Doctors explained that Sophie needed a blood transfusion and constant care to stabilize her condition. Colin was by her side, committed to helping in any way possible. For the first time, I saw in his eyes a genuine, deep love for Sophie. During the following weeks, the routine of hospital visits became a part of our lives. Ethan and I were there every day, by Colin's side, offering support and affection. One day, while we were in the hospital, Sophie looked at me with tears in her eyes. I want to change, Haley. I want to be a better person, for myself and for my baby. You've already started this change, Sophie. We are all here for you. Sophie's recovery was slow but steady. She began attending therapy and gradually rebuilt her life. The pregnancy was progressing well, and over time, the relationship between her and Colin strengthened. Sophie was finally finding her own way. And I, alongside Ethan, was happy to witness his transformation. She was no longer just my shadow, but a strong and independent person. And this journey, although painful, has brought us closer than ever. Over time, the routine at the hospital turned into hope. Sophie was visibly improving, gaining strength by the day. Colin was always by his side, his unwavering support. Ethan and I also made it a point to visit her daily, bringing her homemade food and telling her funny stories to lift her spirits. On a sunny afternoon, as we sat around her bed, Sophie smiled for the first time in weeks. You know, I never thought I'd get this far. I thought I was destined to live in your shadow. You've always had your own light, Sophie. I just needed to find her, I said, holding her hand. It's true, Ethan agreed. You are strong and brave. We're all proud of you. Colin has been amazing, Sophie admitted, looking fondly at him. I wouldn't be here without him. Colin smiled shyly. We're in this together, Sophie. We always have been. The days turned into weeks, and soon Sophie was discharged. She returned home with Colin, determined to rebuild her life. Therapy was helping her deal with her fears and insecurities, and she began to engage in activities that she really enjoyed, without worrying about imitating anyone. When the baby was born, a beautiful girl named Clara, the joy was indescribable. The whole family gathered to celebrate Sophie's new beginning. Mom and Dad were radiant, holding their granddaughter with pride. On a special day, while we were all gathered at our parents' house for a barbecue, Sophie approached me, holding Clara in her arms. "I want you to be her godmother, Haley." My eyes filled with tears. "I would love to, Sophie. It will be an honor." That afternoon was magical. We laugh, cry, and celebrate life. Sophie was finally living fully, free from the shadows of the past. And I, next to Ethan, felt immense gratitude for being there, witnessing her transformation. Looking ahead, we knew there would still be challenges, but we were ready to tackle them together. Our family, stronger and more united than ever, was ready for anything, and that was all that mattered. Time passed quickly, and little Clara grew up healthy and happy. Sophie was a devoted mother, balancing her personal and professional life with grace and determination. She had found a job she loved, working as a graphic designer, and it was thriving. Colin, ever the devoted partner, was by his side every step of the way. One day, while we were in the park, Clara running and laughing, Sophie turned to me with a serious look. "Haley, I need to tell you something." "Of course, what?" I asked, worried. "I'm thinking of writing a book," she said, surprise on her face. "A book? About what?" "About our history. About how I spent years trying to be you, and how I finally found my own identity. I want to help other people who feel lost, like I did." I was silent for a moment, absorbing his words. "I think it's an amazing idea, Sophie. His story can really inspire a lot of people." She smiled, relieved. "I hope so too. It's going to be a tough job, but I feel like it's something I need to do." While Sophie dedicated herself to the book project, our family life continued to flourish. Ethan and I started thinking about growing our own family. The idea of having children became more and more real, and we discussed it often, dreaming about the future. On a quiet evening, as we sat on the couch, Ethan held my hand and said, "Haley, I think we're ready. Let's start our family." My eyes filled with tears of happiness. "Yes, I'm ready, Ethan." Our days were filled with hope and expectations. Sophie, upon hearing the news, was overjoyed. Clara will love having a cousin to play with. Sophie's book was progressing well, and she often shared excerpts with me, asking for my opinion. Each page was a reflection of his journey, a testament to his resilience and growth. Finally, launch day arrived. The bookstore was filled with friends and family, all eager to celebrate Sophie's achievement. When she went on stage to speak, I saw in her eyes the strong, independent woman who had always been there, waiting to shine. "This book is a love letter to everyone who has supported me," she began, her voice steady. "It's a reminder that even in the shadows, we can find our light." We applauded, moved. Sophie had completed her transformation, and we as a family were ready to face anything together. The months following the release of Sophie's book were a roller coaster of emotions. His book quickly became a bestseller, inspiring readers of all ages. She received invitations to lectures and interviews, sharing her story with the world. Success was something Sophie had never directly sought, but now found it in a genuine way. Ethan and I, meanwhile, were navigating our own family expansion journey. After a few attempts, we finally received the news we had been waiting for. I was pregnant. The joy was indescribable. We shared the news with our family over dinner at home, and everyone was euphoric. Mom cried with happiness, and Dad gave me a tight hug, whispering that he couldn't wait to be a grandfather again. During one of those quiet evenings at home, Sophie called me. She looked more reflective than usual. "Haley, I'm thinking of taking a trip, something to find even more inspiration for. Where do you want to go?" I thought of a writing retreat in a small village in Tuscany. "It's a place where I can really reconnect and maybe start my next book." I supported her immediately. "It's going to be amazing, Sophie. You deserve it. And I know he'll come back with even more stories to tell." As Sophie prepared for her trip, Ethan and I focused on preparing our home for the baby's arrival. We decided not to find out the sex, wanting the surprise at the moment of birth. The weeks flew by, and soon it was time for Sophie to say goodbye. At the airport, we hugged tightly. "I'm going to miss you, sis," she said, tears in her eyes. "Me too, Haley. But I know it's a good farewell. When I get back, I want to see my nephew or niece." We watched Sophie board the plane, feeling a mixture of pride and longing. Our family was growing and transforming in ways we never imagined, and each new chapter brought more love and resilience. The last month of my pregnancy was a mixture of anxiety and excitement. Ethan was always by my side, holding my hand and calming my nerves. And then, finally, the big day arrived. Labor was long and hard, but in the end, we were holding our baby in our arms, a beautiful, healthy baby girl. We decided to call her Alice, a name that meant nobility and truth. When we called Sophie to tell her the news, she was in tears of happiness. "I can't wait to meet my niece," she said, "and to bring back all the stories I found in Tuscany." With Alice in our arms and Sophie in a new chapter of her life, we felt that the world was full of possibilities, and our family, stronger and more united than ever, was ready to face any challenge together. Sophie's return from Tuscany was exciting. When she arrived at our house and held Alice for the first time, her eyes filled with tears. "She's perfect, Haley, and so small," she said, smiling. Alice, with her curious eyes and rosy cheeks, seemed to absorb the love of everyone around her. Sophie brought with her an aura of tranquility and wisdom. The trip to Tuscany had done wonders for his creative soul. "I have so many stories to tell," she confided to me, holding my hand, "and I can't wait to share it all with you." As Sophie immersed herself in her new literary projects, our family adapted to Alice's presence. Each day was a new discovery, a new reason to smile. Ethan proved to be a dedicated and loving father, always by my side in the sleepless early mornings and in Alice's uncertain first steps. Clara, now a smart and energetic girl, adored her little cousin. She cared for Alice with the affection and patience of an older sister, and the two quickly became inseparable. Seeing Clara and Alice together, playing and laughing, filled our hearts with indescribable joy. One day, during a family gathering in the garden of our parents' house, Sophie made a startling announcement. "I decided to start a new project," she said, looking at each of us. "I want to open a foundation to support young writers. I want to help people who, like me, are trying to find their own voice." Mom and Dad were radiant with pride. "That's amazing, Sophie," Mom said, hugging her. "You're going to change so many lives." Time passed, and our family continued to grow in love and accomplishments. Ethan and I watched proudly as Alice took her first steps and said her first words. And Sophie, with her foundation and her books, was more fulfilled than ever. That summer, we hosted a big barbecue to celebrate all of our achievements and the unbreakable unity of our family. Under the starry sky, as the sound of childlike laughter echoed around us, Ethan turned to me and said, "Look at everything we've built, Haley. Our family is proof that, despite all the difficulties, love always prevails." I smiled, feeling the heat of the moment. "Yes, Ethan, we are truly blessed." With Alice in my arms, Sophie by my side, and Ethan holding my hand, I felt a deep peace. Our journey had been long and full of challenges, but each step brought us here, united and stronger. And so, under the stars, I promised myself to continue cherishing every moment, knowing that our story was just beginning. Let us know what you think of this story and share this story with your friends. It might brighten their day and inspire them. See you in the next exciting story.